you so much. So today, we're talking about process improvement frameworks to enable sustainable and profitable automation. And I know that's a mouthful, but in terms of what we're going to cover in the hour, we're going to go over some foundation stuff. Especially, you're going to get a little bit of the process science perspective, like I mentioned earlier, on what is a process and what is automation. And I think that these are extremely important topics to start at the operating terminology level, because a lot of people talk about these things in the marketplace and everyone has a slightly different impression of what they're referring to. So we're going to start by level setting, and then I'm going to talk about the cost of variation in automation, what that work entails and what the costs really are. And then we'll move into frameworks for how do we actually do proper automation work at a very high level. One thing I'd like to caveat is automation work is a process improvement project generally, and there's a lot of nuance there, and I could give a 20-hour, 40-hour course on how to do a proper process improvement project. So I'm trying in this presentation to distill what is most relevant to do an automation project, or really just more generally automation work. And then we'll kind of end with the kind of summary of the presentation, which is what is sustainable, profitable automation work. And we'll talk about that and how you want to think about that. So before we jump right in, if you have any questions, I have baked some time in to answer them. So please feel free to shoot them into the Q&A or whatever chat enable sort of like function you have on this WebEx, and I'll try to keep a look for it. I'll also leave a little time for questions at the end. But I'm happy to kind of pause and answer some questions as we go through. All right. So we're going to start with process science foundation of process. I level set a lot of conversations this way just so we all know what we're talking about. Generally, a lot of people think of process as just the mechanism that changes inputs, which is ideas, raw materials, whatever it is, into outputs, goods or services. But I have to start by saying this is not really a strong definition of process, because there's more to the story. This is an unqualified definition. Inputs going to outputs. If nobody wants the outputs, then the process is not going to really have any engagement, and therefore it's not going to be existing for that long. So if you think about it that way, it can't really define process that way. So in the process science definition of process, it is qualified, and the definition is energy of any type goes into process and transforms it into value. And value is just the difference between benefits and costs. So there has to be a value creation occurring for a process to be sustained over time. And energy in the business context is capital and labor, typically are the greatest forms that we measure when we talk about energy going through processes. So the process science definition of process is the mechanism that transforms energy into value. And some business examples, just to kind of give us an idea, include sending an invoice, preparing a proposal, sending a newsletter, logging a payment. I mean, you can see this list is kind of all over the place, and the point is to get you thinking about what a process actually is with that definition. And the answer is it's everything. And a lot of people, they look at this and they kind of scoff at first. But when you think about a process, a lot of people think, oh, it has to be documented, or it's some bureaucratic series of steps. But a process is actually everything in motion. So if something is moving and had energy go into it, it starts an event, it starts a transformation, and that energy has to go somewhere, it has to end, the process has to end eventually with something being created. And just to scope it in your mind, enabled processes can be large and take many hours or days or years if we're talking about a project. So remember that a project is a single process. Even if it's a 5-year process, it's a single process that's running to create one unique output. And processes can take fractions of seconds. They can be simple. They can go on thousands of times a day or thousands of times a minute, depending on what we're talking about. But everything in motion can be described by process. And the reason this is so important as a foundation is anything can be analyzed, anything can be improved, and anything in motion can be a target for automation. So when people think about, well, we're automating a process, you have to know what automation is, and you have to know the scope of what a process is, and the boundaries of what we're looking at, and the target of sort of our analysis. And there really is no end to what that can be. So if somebody comes and says, I'm going to automate this, where is the process? The process is always there. The process is always happening in the work environment. It could be extremely chaotic. It could be ad hoc with a lot of variation, and it could be completely undocumented. But the process is there. Process is happening. Process is everything that's moving along in the business. So that's the definition of process. And when I say process, I'm talking about everything in motion. And, in process science, there's ways to break that definition down to more practical elements. So we're not going to have time to talk about them today. But I just wanted everyone to start with that when we talk about the next topic, which is what is automation? And for this presentation, I'm going to spend a lot more time here getting into a little bit of nuance. And again, a lot of people have a different impression of what automation is. So we're going to talk about the process science perspective on automation. And here's the formal definition from our camp, which is automation is the design of processes that can operate with less or no human intervention. And I underline the less to really draw attention to this. A lot of people conflate the word or the act of automation in their head with moving things into machines or robots or making sure that a human is not involved at all. That's really not the spirit of automation and not typically what the work entails generally. So if you study lean and you study intelligent automation, which is the whole concept of Jidoka, or you study how automation was actually happening in some of the more process mature companies, it was never about transferring a bunch of manual work into robotics or into software systems. It was always about how can we design processes with less human intervention, less human decision making, and less human judgment. And why is that important? It's because that's your lever to decrease cost. So when we're talking about automation at this level, you're talking about redesigning processes that operate with less human intervention, which obviously the ultimate form of less is none, but that's actually quite difficult to achieve true automation or to get something that a human is doing today and automate the whole process into a machine. So typically, if you have an executive's time, which is worth, let's say, a few $100s an hour, and you can reduce it to have less of his time involved, or you can delegate it, that's a form of automation. You're reducing the cost of decision-making and processes. And that's what that little red line at the bottom, strong automation drives down the cost of operating processes over time. So if you're a company that's really, one of your strategic focuses is automation, you're looking to design processes that drives the cost of operating down over time through automation as your lever. So we'll kind of extend the conversation as we go forward. I guess I just wanted to end that point with saying that don't equate it to, hey, we have to make everything into robots. A lot of people I talk to, they have this fancy vision of, hey, everyone, we're automating now, so now everything's going to turn into robots. That's not really practical, and it's not how this work functions. So if you have stakeholders that have those expectations, it's good to temper that in the beginning if you want to have a successful outcome. All right, so now I'm going to spend the next 4 or 5 slides getting a bit heady. Just as a disclaimer, we're going to talk about process in general and talk about the cost associated with variation and the cost of automation because they're related, so you have a strong base to talk about automation more intelligently.
Hi there, I hope you enjoyed that last clip. My name is Michael Maludis, and if you'd like to watch the full 60 minutes of that last webcast, while also getting complete unlimited access to our entire library of IT learning, simply visit our subscribe page at greatpro.org/subscribe. Unlimited annual access is $199 per year, but if you use the coupon code LEARN2EARN, you can drop that membership fee to just $149. That's less than $13 per month for unlimited access to over 1,000 hours of on-demand career development, covering the entire spectrum of IT management best practices, including business analysis and requirements, software development, quality and testing, risk management, process improvement, project management, and even digital transformation. But your membership doesn't just give you unlimited access to our vast learning library. You also get free access to our mobile app, as well as direct access to our network of over 300 of the world's leading IT consultants, all of whom are dedicated to putting practical knowledge at your fingertips so that you can learn more and earn more. I hope you will join me in becoming a member of the Great IT Professional and advancing your career with us. And if you're on YouTube, don't forget to hit that subscribe button above so that you get notified whenever we publish new free webcasts each week of the year. Thank you for your time and best wishes for your continued success.